feel like I'm always blending in with the background. Like, you can't even see that. Oh well. Hey guys, welcome back. As you can tell from the title of today's video, we are doing the book recommendation tag. I feel like I probably shouldn't be doing this tag only because I read so many hyped up books. Like, I don't really read anything new or like out of what is already trending on Book Talk or Bookstagram. So we're gonna see how this goes. So I'm gonna keep this short and we're gonna go ahead and start with our first question. A book you tell people is your favorite. Can you guys guess what that's gonna be for me? Listen, I'm lazy and I don't want to get up, so slow down. Oh, hello. Yeah, that series. Yeah, I don't think there's any question or doubt. I'm definitely telling people it's the Throne of Glass series. You guys know I'm a whore for Aelin. Listen, it's just what it is. The second question is a book that is your guilty pleasure. This is a guilty pleasure. I do not read a lot of romance books. Like, that's normally the genre that I don't really turn towards. I turn towards like fantasy or like YA fantasy or fantasy romance, stuff like that. But this series is strictly just like romance. And I devoured it. I read these all on my Kindle and then loved them so much that I went out and bought the physical copies for my bookshelf. If that isn't guilty pleasure, I don't know what is. If we're going in order of what my favorite books are, 100% Twisted Hate, Twisted Games, Twisted Lies, and Twisted Love. That's just how it has to go. I know a lot of people love Twisted Games, but I'm telling you, something about Twisted Hate. If this is your guilty pleasure book series, I expect to see Twisted Hate at the very top. The very top. Question number 3. A book that everyone loved, but you didn't. I have quite a few, but I feel like my main one might be a little heartbreaking for a lot of people. Actually, you know what? I think I rated this like pretty good, but thinking back on it, I'm like, I did not enjoy this book at all. Let's see what I rated this. So I gave it a 3-star, which, like, looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know. But The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab was not my favorite at all. But the thing is, I keep blaming it on the fact that I listened to this on Audible. So I was fairly confused like the entire time listening to it or like reading it. If I physically would have read this, maybe I would have liked it better, but honestly, I like really could not care about this book or the story like at all. I'm sorry. Sorry. But do I keep it on my bookshelf? Absolutely. Question number 4. A book you read the fastest. I had to think about this because right now I am reading, let me get it. Right now I'm reading Shatter Me, and I started this yesterday and I'm already almost done with it. I only have like maybe 5 chapters left. So I would normally say that this one was the fastest I've read, but I haven't finished it yet. But I do have the second book in A Touch of Darkness series by Scarlett St. Clair, her Hades and Persephone retelling. I read that in a day. I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with that entire series. It was the first time that I was ever reading like a mythology retelling type of thing, and man, the way that Scarlett St. Clair writes about Hades and Persephone in like modern day, but like with lore and mythology, it's just so good, and I read that so fast. A book that deserves more hype. The ACOTAR series for sure. I feel like that series does not get enough hype as it should. I really thought that that was funny. Okay, this was also a hard question to answer because I already read so many of the hyped books. Like, I very rarely venture out and go find a book that I haven't heard of on Book Talk, or if I haven't heard on Bookstagram. And like, me and my friends, we read all of the same hyped up books, so it's hard to come up with an answer because it's like all of these books that I've read were already very hyped up. So we all know The Dance of Thieves and The Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson, that duology. That duology was very hyped up. But I don't think a lot of people know that that is actually a sequel to the original Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson. The Kiss of Deception is the first book in the Remnant Chronicles, and these stories were the original stories that Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves came from. So these technically would be considered the prequels, and the Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves would be the sequels. All based in the same world, but you see characters in the sequels from these books. And I cannot recommend this series enough. I know a lot of people who have read both of the series say that they like the Dance of Thieves duology better. But man, this first book in this series, my God, it took you on a whirlwind. It's like trying to figure out who the characters are. It's just like insane. And the twist at the end is just like crazy. I love this, and this book should get more hype, I think. I don't know if it already is very hyped up, but The Kiss of Deception. This is a good one. It's a good one. Okay, the next question is a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. Other than the normal recommendations, like obviously I recommend the Throne of Glass series, I recommend the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, but staying away from that because I don't want to answer too many of these questions with Sarah J. Maas, because talk about a freaking author and books that are very hyped up. It is Sarah J. Maas, and like rightfully so, but at the same time it's like there are other books out there that are just as good, probably even better. And that's coming from me. I'm saying that, like, please. So for this one, I decided to give 3 recommendations because there's different recommendations for different genres. So like if someone was like, hey, do you have a book rec? I would ask like, well, what genre are you looking for? Are you looking for fantasy romance, YA, or romance? You know, like what am I recommending to you? For a delicious fantasy romance recommendation, I always, to the day that I die or find something better, which I haven't yet, I will always recommend The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. Oh, this book. I read all the Sarah J. Maas books, Throne of Glass, Court of Thorns and Roses, and I think Crescent City, the first book in the Crescent City had come out, and anything that I had read after that, I didn't get the same feeling of like how I was when I was reading Sarah J. Maas books. I just, you know, if you know what I'm talking about, like that feeling of like enjoying a book so much and getting so attached to the characters that you just feel like you're with them or in the world and you don't want to give them up, like you don't want it to stop. That's exactly how I felt when I picked up The Bridge Kingdom. I swear to God, after I was finished with the first book, I had to call and text all my friends and I had to be like, listen, you have to read this right now because I have nobody to talk to about it and I'm obsessed. Like, I can't. I felt like so empty after reading like the series. It's still going on. Like, it's a current series, so she has more books coming out. I'm horrible at giving quick summaries, but basically our main character is a daughter of a king from a different kingdom who was trained to be an assassin and is sent away to marry the king of their rival kingdom. She is sent to marry him and basically assassinate him, spy on him. You get the gist. And of course, you know what happens after that. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So for your fantasy romance recommendation from yours truly, I recommend, if you haven't read already, The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. For my YA fantasy recommendation, I will always, until the day I die, recommend Six of Crows by Leah Bardugo. I feel like a lot of people have already read this duology, but if you haven't, I highly recommend. This is actually the duology sequel to Shadow and Bone, I believe. But it's not, but it's like different characters, different stories, but in the same world, if that makes sense. So you can read this duology without reading the prequel. You know what I mean? Am I explaining that right? I did not read the Shadow and Bone trilogy before reading Six of Crows, and I felt like I was perfectly fine. And I still have not read Shadow and Bone because a lot of people say that it's not their favorite. They prefer the Six of Crows over Shadow and Bone. This book gives me like Peaky Blinder vibes, but teenagers. Like, just these a bunch of kids who are like a found family now and they're going on a heist together. Like, right? That's how you would explain it. Just like a teenaged version of Peaky Blinders. I think my favorite thing about this is the found family though in this book. That's what really makes it just like so good for me. It's all of the characters. I love every single one of them. The next question is a book that deserves all the hype. And I actually just finished this series after hearing all the hype that I got. And of course that is the Mindfuck series. This series, man. This is about a FBI agent and a serial killer basically falling in love. But throughout the series, you find out why our serial killer is killing people. You learn about her story. You learn about the FBI agent, and you get to see their love story. And he's working on her case, so it just makes it even more fun. There's so many lies and deception, and there's like the mystery of like figuring out why our serial killer is doing what she's doing. And it is heavy, so look up the trigger warnings because there are many, but I'm telling you guys, this series, so good. I think there are 5 books and each book is like under 200 pages, so I believe you can get it in one big book, like all 5 stories in one. But I read it on my Kindle and I'm telling you guys, I flew through. Highly recommend. A book from a genre that you don't typically read. I don't typically read a lot of genres, I feel like, because I mostly only stick to fantasy or like YA fantasy romance type of stuff. So I don't normally read romance, and I definitely don't normally read thrillers. But I recently started dipping my toe into a couple thrillers, and the only one that I have really liked so far is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This one was fun, man. This took me on a roller coaster. I loved the ending. I loved the entire thing. A lot of people didn't like this because they thought that it was boring and they thought that the alcohol consumption of our main character was like obsessive and annoying. But I enjoyed seeing her go through her day-to-day life, even if she wasn't really doing much in the book. I don't know why. I just thought it was very entertaining, and the ending was so much fun to read about. It was just like, oh my god, and the twist at the end, I was like, what? Where'd this even come from? So I love thrillers like that. I was like, whoa, that came out of left field, and it kind of did, but I was also there for it. So a book that you reread the most. This one's gonna be easy. I don't reread my books. Ooh. I have only ever read one book, and that is A Court of Mist and Fury. I only reread this book out of the entire series. Only this one. This question, a book that is becoming a TV show series or a movie. You guys, there are so many books that are coming out as TV shows and movies. ACOTAR, hopefully coming out as a TV show. We're not quite sure about that yet. Daisy Jones and the Six is already out on Amazon. It Ends With Us is coming out as a movie. Red, White, and Royal Blue coming out as a movie. From Blood and Ash, Jennifer L. Armentrout just said that that is becoming a TV show. So like, At this point, there are so many of our favorite books being adapted into a movie or TV show, and I'm here for it because I love cinematography and I love turning things into film. So I love the idea of all of our favorite books becoming something on the screen. Even if it's gonna be good or bad, I'm still gonna watch it and I'm still going to hopefully enjoy it. Don't come from me, but I swear to God, when the Mortal Instruments movie came out, bitch, I was there for it. I was loving it. I was like, oh my God. Jamie Campbell Bower, I loved that movie. I don't know what everyone's talking about. That was a bomb-ass movie for Shadowhunters, whatever, you know what I mean? A book that has your favorite characters, Throne of Glass series. Moving on. A book you wish you could live in. I would 100% live in Terrasen. I would live in the Throne of Glass world. Bet your bottom dollar. I would live there. 100%. And if not there, then I would live in Valaris. Bitch. Sarah J. Maas makes beautiful worlds, but trying to pick different answers, but those are my top answers. Like, it'd be Terrasen, Valaris, and then I would love to live in the Once Upon a Broken Heart world. I would love to live in Stephanie Garber's magical worlds that she builds. They're such a fairy tale that I just like can't help but like want to just be there, you know? Like, that would be a world that I would not mind living in at all. Like, you get fairy tales, like, even though the fates are scary as hell, like, who wouldn't want to live in a world that's basically one huge fairy tale? Like, come on. Come on! A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. I don't think I've ever read a book going into it being like, I think I'm gonna hate this book, and then ended up loving it. I want to change it up. So, a book that I thought I would go into loving but ended up hating, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked. I really thought going into this book that I was going to love it because my friends loved it. Like, my friend told me, she was like, you need to read this book, it's so good. And then it was so hyped up on like Book Talk and everyone was loving it, and I read it and I just did not like it. I was so bored the entire time, and I thought that our main character was just annoying. I was just like, some of the decisions that she was making was just like, what? I'm pretty sure the first book is YA, but does it get more mature as the books go? Like, we know Sarah does that with Akatar, but I was like, if it's another one of those, like, I'm okay with it, but I just, after reading the first book, I really didn't have any motivation to read the second one. Next, we have a book that made you cry. I want to cry just thinking about this book. If you guys have not read the Ravenhood series, you guys are missing out. That, the second book, Exodus, tore out my heart. I was crying throughout the entire thing. The entire thing. It was so emotional the entire time. It was just like an emotional roller coaster. Like, our poor main character could not catch a break to save her life. All she wanted was to have a freaking summer with no freaking drama, just so she could get the summer over with and get her father's inheritance. I think that's what the storyline was, but what she went through was like so much more. If you guys know, you know. Like, that book destroyed me, and that's why I was in such a bad reading slump after reading that series. It's just because it was the only thing that I could think about for weeks. Highly recommend. And then for our last question, it is a book you wish you could read for the first time. The only answer that I feel like is acceptable is all of my 5-star reads. I wish I could read those for the first time, because duh. But if we're gonna be specific, I would have to say any Cassandra Clare book. Any of them. Literally, the Mortal Instruments series, the Infernal Devices series, the Dark Artifices series, the Last Hour series. Every single one of those books I would literally do anything to read for the first time. The way that she has come up with this world and all of these different characters, there are so many characters. Insane. And the world that she came up with, if I could read the Infernal Devices for the first time and the Mortal Instruments, I would probably read them in the correct order. Like, I read the Mortal Instruments first and then the Infernal Devices. If I could reread those and just switch them, like read them in the correct order, you guys know. Then I would. And that is my book recommendation tag. This was a lot of fun. This actually made me think a lot. Because I feel like I don't really recommend books a lot to people. It's mostly just people recommending books to me and me being like, okay, yeah, ooh, and that's me. But that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully maybe you guys took some recommendations from this video. That would be really awesome if I actually finally recommended something to someone, but probably not, because all of the books that I've talked about are very popular and probably a lot of you have already read them, which is fine. Like I said, that's like just how my life goes. But I will see you guys in my next video.